A tragic accident occurred when the family's car was struck by an SUV. The father lay collapsed on the road after the high-speed head-on collision. Police arrived quickly, and the father immediately asked about his son's condition. Despite a severe leg injury, he still tried to direct help to those trapped in the vehicle. His physical pain could not overshadow the extreme anxiety he felt for his children. He kept asking the officer for help and pointed out the suspects involved. A man in a red shirt hurriedly left the scene as the police approached. He tried to evade questions by pretending not to understand English. Medical personnel and ambulances began to gather in large numbers to provide emergency support. Despite his evasiveness, the man in red was detained by the police for questioning. He was pushed into the back of the patrol car under strict supervision. Outside, the fire department also arrived just in time to handle the dangerous wreckage. The seriously injured victims were quickly given first aid and transferred onto stretchers. Police confirmed the father had suffered serious fractures but was still trying to stay conscious. Authorities continuously reassured the victims and ensured they were receiving proper care. An officer reported that a suspect had tried to flee but was caught. He is now locked securely in the police cruiser, awaiting further investigation. The scene was littered with countless shards from the completely mangled black SUV. A bystander reported that there was still a female driver trapped inside the vehicle that caused the crash. Meanwhile, the 5-year-old girl had been rushed to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. The person who caused the tragedy was Charmaine, a woman with a history of reckless driving. Security footage showed her speeding recklessly on the slippery, snow-covered road. Police carefully checked the condition of the woman lying motionless between the crushed driver's seat. The scene was chaotic, with too many vehicles and onlookers crowding around. The identification and roles of everyone in both vehicles were being urgently processed. Witnesses began sharing valuable information to help police reconstruct the accident. The woman pointed out another man who had snuck away from the crash vehicle earlier. Police reminded everyone not to move the female driver on their own to avoid causing further injury. At the same time, those not involved were asked to step back to clear space for the rescue team. Police tried to open the car door by hand, but the crushed metal frame was completely jammed. They turned to ask bystanders if anyone had witnessed the collision. Specialized prying tools were brought out to rescue the female driver from the cramped cockpit. Efforts to open the door faced many difficulties because the door was severely deformed after the impact. The process of taking witness statements began to gather evidence against the perpetrator. Authorities tried to comfort the victims who were in a state of extreme shock and pain. A man revealed he only arrived at the scene after the horrific accident had ended. But he had managed to see the passenger sneakily throwing liquor bottles into the grass near the church. Meanwhile, the condition of the innocent children on their way to the hospital remained critical. The truth about the man's attempt to dispose of evidence was quickly exposed by the police. Firefighters arrived and immediately deployed specialized equipment to cut off the car roof. The officer distributed forms for witnesses to record all the details they had observed. 2 people in the same vehicle confirmed they had witnessed the reckless driving from start to finish. Medical staff continued to assess the condition of the drunk driver inside the death trap. Police followed the testimony, heading deep into the church parking lot to search for evidence. Just as expected, the beer bottles scattered on the ground were the evidence incriminating them. Back at the mangled car, police kept talking to the driver to keep her from losing consciousness. They explained why they could not pull her out immediately, fearing it would aggravate internal injuries. The officer used a knife to cut away the airbag that was obstructing the view inside the cockpit. He stepped away briefly to continue gathering more statements from witnesses of the brutal event. Firefighters approached the driver and called out Charmaine to check her level of alertness. They carefully checked whether the car's ignition had been turned off to prevent the risk of fire or explosion. Witnesses recount how the suspect's vehicle came barreling from behind at a terrifying speed. The reckless out-of-control maneuver showed that the occupants had zero regard for the safety of others. The SUV was sent spinning, slamming into the family's car because they could not brake in time. At the scene, Charmaine kept nodding off despite the officer's constant demands for her to stay alert. The officer had to bang hard on the window to wake her, but her blood alcohol level seemed way too high. The consequence of that drunken stupor was an innocent father suffering a broken leg and a dislocated shoulder in excruciating pain. The 6-year-old son suffered facial injuries, while the 5-year-old daughter faced a brush with death. The little girl suffered a skull fracture and severe brain trauma, requiring an emergency flight to a specialized hospital. Witnesses choked back tears, describing the bloodied father desperately trying to perform CPR on his little girl. The crazed vehicle just plowed straight into their lane, leaving the victims no chance to dodge it. The father was in shock, unable to process what had happened before his legs were shattered by the impact. The young son was taken by first responders to take shelter inside a nearby church. The boy seemed alert and was being tenderly cared for while waiting for his family to arrive. The paramedics spoke softly to the boy to soothe his fear after the horrific collision. Meanwhile, the drunken driver mumbled incoherently, claiming she could not see anything at all. The officer tried to ask where she was headed, but she could not even utter a coherent sentence. The officer returned to the father to confirm if the children had been properly buckled in. He nodded, confirming they were in their car seats, but the force of the impact had rendered all safety measures useless. Back at the church, the medic gently wiped the blood from the 6-year-old boy's innocent face. They carefully checked to see if the boy had any broken bones or serious injuries to his legs. Fortunately, the boy's legs did not seem to be as severely injured as his father's condition. Outside, firefighters were using the jaws of life to cut away the frame and create space for the rescue. The father, in agonizing pain, confirmed that the man in red was indeed the passenger who had been with the driver. The fire crew carefully cleared the broken glass to avoid causing further injury while pulling the victims out. Police continued to collect witness statements from the chaotic scene to build their case. A nearby surveillance camera had accidentally captured the full, terrifying speed of the death car. Measurement data later showed that her blood alcohol level was nearly 5 times the legal limit. The footage from before the crash showed the calm before the storm that would destroy the small family. The father was in extreme pain as he clearly felt his legs had been crushed after the collision. The medical team encouraged him to lean against their legs to relieve some of the pressure on his injuries. Every effort at this moment was aimed at providing first aid and keeping the unfortunate father as alert as possible. The officer met another witness and collected photos he had taken right after the accident. The man insisted that the suspect's vehicle had been traveling at an unimaginable speed before the tragedy occurred. He was ready to fill out the incident report to provide all the details for the investigation. Police also proceeded to collect personal information from another key witness at the scene. The man carefully searched for his ID to provide to law enforcement. The officer handed him the form and instructed him to detail exactly what he had seen at that moment. They carefully reconfirmed that the young son was safe inside the church area. After a difficult extraction, the drunken driver was finally put on a stretcher and taken away. At the same time, the passenger, who had been sneaking around, was also checked for minor injuries by the medics. He appeared indifferent and casually walked to the vehicle, in stark contrast to the victim's extreme pain. Amidst that heartbreaking scene, the father's girlfriend rushed to the scene with a panicked look on her face. She was desperate to leave her contact information, pleading with the police to update her on the family's condition. She shared that they lived across from each other and had considered each other family for a long time. There was a heavy sadness in her eyes as she stood in shock before the pile of scrap metal that used to be a familiar car. Every word of comfort became meaningless in the face of the tragedy that had just struck. A week after the accident, no miracle happened as the 5-year-old girl took her final breath. The decision to remove life support was the ultimate pain the family had to bear because of someone else's recklessness. The villain Charmaine then had to face a series of charges, from manslaughter to traffic violations. A prison sentence of 1 to 15 years was handed down, forcing her to pay a heavy price for her cold-blooded actions. This is the fitting punishment for the person who stole the bright future of an innocent child.